Oh, what's up, smarty people? It's KeysDAN with RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live in living color from the Radio What studios. And this is my podcast, The KeysDAN Show. It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do I always send you? DJLittleRock.com. Check availability and get a free price quote. And maybe you could have me at your next event. You know I like to party with the people. Also, if you'd like to tell your story or hear the stories of others, I encourage you to check out my other podcast. It's called What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. Now, on with the show. Today on the program, interesting facts. Man, I do like that website, interestingfacts.com. If you haven't done so yet, check them out. I tell you, they got a lot of, they're doing a lot of good work out there, making my job a lot easier, just getting those facts off of interestingfacts.com. Today on the program, the origins of 7 graduation traditions. It's graduation season. A time when students wear awkwardly pointy hats, wrap themselves in a robe, and listen to esteemed strangers tell them to chase their dreams. Here's how those traditions came to be, and the reason graduates are always marching to that song. Number 1, wearing robes. The first universities in Europe weren't designed for fresh-faced teens straight out of high school. They were for the clergy in training. These medieval students would wear robes or gowns, much like the vestments still worn by priests, monks, and other religious orders today. The hoods often helped keep shaved heads warm. While universities are no longer strictly training grounds for the religious folk, these ancient garments have remained a part of everyday wear for centuries. In fact, at schools such as Oxford, students must pull out the so-called academic dress for regular events like exams and chapel. And in Portugal, some students still wear capes to class, which may have been part of the inspiration for the Harry Potter uniform. How about that? Number 2, square hats. It's hip to be square. The mortarboard is another acronym from the university's medieval holy days. Back in the 11th century, a newly ordained clergyman would receive a round skull cap called a calotte, C-A-L-O-T-T-E. As the centuries passed, and universities grew to include new areas of study, the headwear stuck around. The hat evolved from a small skull cap to a round and puffy beret called a pallius rotundus, P-I-L-E-U-S, pallius rotundus, to a square-shaped hat called, which supposedly saved time and fabric. For centuries later, the ceremonial square cap, first called a mortarboard, M-O-R-T-A-R-B-O-A-R-D, mortarboard, in the 19th century for its resemblance to the boards masons used for carrying mortar, remains the graduate's go-to. Learn stuff every day. I was this years old when I learned that. Number 3, moving the tassel. Tassels have been around for millennia, often used as a talisman or a marker of rank. Hundreds of years ago, students at Oxford wore different colored tassels to denote their social status. The moving of the tassel, however, is a modern tradition. It's unclear when or why graduates started the practice, but it may be related to hooding ceremonies, where master's or doctorate students is individually given a hood or stole. At some universities, the tradition actually called for an entire wardrobe change. Fashion. The moving of the tassel may have emerged as a similar practice, a small fashion tweak that symbolizes a graduate's upgraded status. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Number 4, throwing the cap. It's not entirely certain when graduates started throwing their caps in the air, and like they do care. But 1912 is the first well-remembered instance. That year, the graduating class at the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis anxiously awaited their commission to become officers. Upon graduating, they would be given an officer's cap and would no longer need the midshipman hats they had worn during their grueling cadet years. Previously, graduates had to serve in the fleet for 2 years before getting their commissions, but the Navy was desperate for junior officers and relaxed the rules that year. So when it came to don their new officer hats, the graduating class threw their old ones in the air in celebration, and a new tradition was born. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Playing Pomp and Circumstance. Written by Edward Elgar in 1901, the musical piece famously played during every graduation was actually one of 5 pomp and circumstance marches by the British composer. In England, the tune, which is named for a line in Shakespeare's Othello, became a patriotic staple after being played at the 1902 coronation of Britain's Edward the Seventh, with lyrics touting the land of hope and glory. The tune wouldn't become a U.S. graduation tradition until 1905, when Elgar received an honorary doctorate at Yale University. Local musicians played the piece as the composer and the graduating class walked out of the ceremony. Other schools soon started using the tune too, and by the 1920s, it was the common graduation theme. Pretty cool. Number 6, getting diplomas. For centuries, it was the student's responsibility to make their own diploma. The document functioned like a passport, a way to prove that he or she had training in a particular set of skills. I have a particular set of skills. If a student wanted a certification of their degree, they needed to hire a calligrapher and then pay their university's president to sign the document. It's not entirely clear which school started to give them out first, but graduates of Harvard College didn't begin receiving diplomas from their alma mater until 1813. Other schools followed the trend soon after. Number 7, the commencement speech. Originally, commencement speeches were performed by the students and faculty, not an outside speaker. Students would orate and debate in Greek, Latin, or Hebrew as a way to show off their extensive public speaking training. At one time, it was common for students to be conversant with all 3 languages. According to a Time article that quotes Anthony Grafton, a professor at Princeton, the custom, quote, goes with the idea that oratory was one of the central things that students were learning and one of the central skills of the university, end quote. But as oratory faded from the institutions, outside speakers stepped in to fill the void and provide words of wisdom to new graduates. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Well, as the graduating class graduates this year, I bid them all the best. The future looks bright. Go on and be, performing members of society. Do some good. Do great things. That's the origins of 7 graduation traditions. This has been KeysDAN Show. Hey, if you'd like to tell your story or hear the stories of others, I encourage you to check out my other podcast. It's called What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag WhatMakesYouFamous. That's it for me. It's KeysDAN, RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. Peace.